Hey, Heather, what's happening? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Hey of Masechta Ayruvin, Daf 45. Some of the things we will learn about today. Returning home from defending against bad guys. Okay? Realizing on Shabbos that you're actually really close to a city. So, can you go in that city? How far? That kind of stuff. What if you wake up on Shabbos and you're in the middle of nowhere? Can you walk 2,000 amos or not? Chevra, we're going to discuss all of these inyanim on Daf Mem Hey of Masechta Shabbos. Nope. Mem Hey of Masechta Ayruvin. So, the Gemara begins on the very bottom line of Mem Daled Amud Beis, Vehecha de lo Shavas Lo. That is the kasha that Abaye asks Rabbah, because what were we talking about yesterday at the end of the daf? Yesterday at the end of the daf, we were saying that, if somebody leaves the Tchum Shabbos, and he's allowed to leave the Tchum Shabbos, let's say he's going to testify about Kiddush HaChodesh, that he saw the new moon and he wants to go to Bezin to let them know, he's allowed to do that, even if it's outside of the Tchum Shabbos. Fine. Let's say on the way he realizes, somebody tells him, the new moon yet, they already know about it in Yerushalayim. So now he's stuck. There's no mitzvah anymore. It's already been done. So we say that, so the Mishnah had said that, if he hadn't yet left his tchum, then it's like nothing happened. So there's machlokas between Rabbah and Rav Shimon bar Chiya what exactly that means. Rabbah said what it means is that mamash, if he hasn't yet left his tchum Shabbos, his initial tchum Shabbos, he didn't really get so far before he found out, so he just goes home and it's like nothing happened. Whereas Rav Shimon bar Chiya, he takes it a little bit further, which is that even if so basically what it means is that wherever he finds out, so then he gets 2,000 amos from where he finds out. Now, if 2,000 amos from where he finds out overlaps with the original 2,000 amos that he had from his city, so then you can treat it, you can mamish walk all the way home, right? Walk the 2,000 amos from where you are, you then get into your original 2,000 amos, and you can then make it all the way back to your city and all the way back home. Rabbah wasn't into Rav Shimon bar Chiya's opinion because he doesn't hold, apparently, of overlapping tchums, right? And we asked the kasha from the cave at the end of the day. We said, look, Rabbah holds of overlapping tchums when you were kona shvisa in that place with the overlapping tchums, such as when you're in that cave. You started Shabbos in the cave has the overlapping tchums, so you can so you can take advantage of both and walk from one into the other. However, in this case, where when Shabbos started, you were home, you weren't where you ended up, when you were traveling to Jerusalem and then you found out the Kiddush HaChodesh, you weren't there when Shabbos started. So therefore, even though, yes, after the fact, when you find out that, there's no point in going to Jerusalem, you have to turn back, at that point, that the Tchum from where you are, the 2,000 amos from where you are, overlap with your initial Tchum Shabbos, but that's really irrelevant because when Shabbos started, you weren't there. That is how Rabbah explained his positioning. Now, Abaye asks Rabbah, he says, one second. Abaye asks Rabbah, he says, just because when Shabbos started, he wasn't in this place that overlaps with his original Tchum Shabbos, that doesn't mean that now when he is in a place that overlaps with his original Tchum Shabbos, that doesn't mean that he can't take advantage of that, i.e., Abaye is saying he should be able to take advantage of that. And therefore, right now, when he finds himself within 2,000 amos of his original Tchum Shabbos, he should be able to walk all the way home. Because after all, we learn in the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Shtaim Yikanes, Gimel Lo Yikanes, that if a person finds himself 2 amos outside of the Tchum Shabbos, no problem, jump back inside. 3 amos outside of the Tchum Shabbos, however, he may not come back inside. What's the difference? So my lab, what's the difference between 2 and 3? Well, Rabbi Eliezer the time. Rabbi Eliezer is consistent with his reasoning, as we're going to learn in the Mishnah at the bottom of the page. The Amr Vu B'Emtzon V'Arba Ames Diyavu LeRabbanan K'man Demivalon Damu V'Ka'amr Yikanes. Must be that why does Rabbi Eliezer say that there's a difference between 2 amos and 3 amos when you leave the Tchum Shabbos? The difference must be that, well, the Chachamim said that when you leave Tchum Shabbos, you have 4 amas. When you leave the Tchum Shabbos, so you still have Dalet amas. So what it must be is that what Rabbi Eliezer is saying is that as long as you're still within 2 amas of the Tchum Shabbos, then you're standing in the middle of the Dalet amas that the Chacham gave you, which means that if you walk towards the Tchum Shabbos, your 2 amas, where the Dalet amas kind of ends, well then it's mamish touching the Tchum Shabbos, and you can consider it as if they're like overlapping, and you can walk straight in. So we see that even though he only ended up walking outside the Tchum Shabbos on Shabbos, nonetheless, we have no problem of applying the concept of the overlapping Tchumin to say he can walk back into his Tchum Shabbos and walk home. So, Alma Havlas Tchumin Milsahi. So we see that overlapping Tchumin is acceptable even if they only overlapped on Shabbos. Amrle Rabba bar Rav Chanan Abai. Rabba bar Rav Chanan says to Abai. Now the Girsa is Rabba bar. It says in the Gemara Rabba bar Chana, but there's a Girsa change to Rabba bar Rav Chanan, and obviously this Girsa change makes sense. Rabba bar Chana would not have been conversing with Abaye. Rabba bar Chana is usually quoting Rabbi Yochanan. We don't really see. I guess maybe he came to Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, to Bavel. He did come to Bavel. Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Hey Amud Aleph. But nonetheless, he wouldn't be, he's not usually conversing with Abaye. Abaye was later on. Also, Rabbi bar Rav Chanan was a contemporary of Abaye, so it makes sense that it's Rabbi bar Rav Chanan. Umid Rabbi Eliezer, Kamosvas le'lamar, right? Also, he was a student of Rabbi bar Rav Chanan, so it would make sense that he's referring to Rabbi as master. Anyways. So Amalei Rabbi bar Rav Chanan la'Abaye. So Rabbi bar Rav Chanan says to Abaye, Umid Rabbi Eliezer, Kamosvas le'lamar. Are you really asking Akasha on Master? Are you really asking Akasha on Rabba from Rabbi Eliezer from Adas Yachid? Amalei in. So Abaye says, I sure am, because it isn't really Adas Yachid. The Chachamim would agree with Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. How come? The Shmiele mine demar, because I heard from Rabba, says Abaye, that even when the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Eliezer, that's only when it comes to a Dvar Rishus, when he's going out on his own volition. But if he's going out to do a Dvar Mitzvah, such as over here, he's going out to do Kiddush HaChodesh, for example, it's a Dvar Mitzvah. So then the Chacham would agree with Rabbi Eliezer, and it's not just a Das Yachid, they would agree that as long as he's within those 2 amis and they're kind of touching the original Tchum Shabbos, he can walk all the way in. So we see that everyone agrees, at least when it comes to Dvar Mitzvah, that overlapping Tchumin are relevant. You can rely upon them, and therefore Abaye is asking Rabba, hey Rabba, why are you not relying upon the overlapping Tchumin over here when he's going out to do a Dvar Mitzvah, to do Kiddush HaChodesh? And then he finds out that, it's already been done, he can turn home. So as long as his Tchum overlaps with the original Tchum, no, Rabba, shouldn't you say that he should be able to walk all the way home like of Shimi bar Chia? And we don't seem to answer this question. Chevre, moving on. Okay. The Mishnah had said that anybody goes out to save. Now, I don't know, in my mind, I've just been saying saving from bad guys. Reminds me of my nephew. He likes to talk a lot about army guys and bad guys. But also I feel like it makes it clear. Bad guys, meaning guys who are like coming to stir up trouble with the Yidden. Nudniks. Bad guys. Vafilu tuva. So the Mishnah says that anybody who is going out to save, so they can go back home afterwards. Vafilu tuva, even if that's far away, says the Gemara. But ve'amart reisha, alpayim ama v'sulo. 1 second. The Mishnah had said 2,000 amas and that's it. Now what did the Mishnah say? Mishiyatza b'shus. Somebody who leaves the Tchum Shabbos with permission. Ve'amulok farnaisa ma'isa, and they say that it's already done. Yesh lo alpayim ama l'chol ruach. So then, from wherever he finds out, he can walk 2,000 amas. 1 second. So on the one hand, we're saying they can only walk 2,000 amas, but then we're saying that somebody who goes to help out fellow Yidden from bad guys, he can go back home even if it's more than 2,000 amas. So what's the deal? When are things limited to 2,000 amas? When can you walk all the way home? We got to make things objective over here. So Rav Yehuda Amarav shechozim b'chlei zayin limkomon. Okay, so Rav Yehuda Amarav comes to answer and he says, okay, what it means is this. These guys coming home from helping out other Yidden from bad guys, so they are not allowed to go all the way home unless all the way home was within 2,000 amas. Right? They are still limited by 2,000 amas. The chiddush, however, of the Yidden, saving other Yidden from bad guys. So the Yidden, so the chiddush is that they can walk those same 2,000 amos, but with their weaponry. That's the chiddush. Okay. But umay kusha. But the Gemara says, 1 second. But what's even the problem b'chlal? Meaning it's apples and oranges. Why not just say that when I go to do Kiddush HaChodesh, and then I find out that, it's already been taken care of, so I only have 2,000 amas, I can only turn back 2,000 amas. And that's that. However, but maybe when it comes to people going to help out other Yidden from bad guys, well, obviously there are bad guys around, and therefore it's dangerous to just have to stop after 2,000 amas. So maybe in that case, you would be able to go all the way home. So, maybe it's different when they're going to save, because it can be dangerous to have to stop after 2,000 amas in the middle of nowhere, especially with bad guys on the prowl. So ela ikasha hakasha. You know what the question is? This is the question. Ditnan. We learned in a Mishnah Rosh Hashanah, Barishona lo hayuzazin misham kol hayom kula. So initially, the chevra who would come to Jerusalem to give testimony that they saw the moon, so they would hang out there in Jerusalem until after Shabbos, because after all they had left their Tchum Shabbos with permission, but now that they've done what they came to do, they can't leave Yerushalayim because it's already outside of Tchum Shabbos. So, Hiskin Rabban Gamliel Azakan Sheishlan Alpaim Amel Choruach. So then, or maybe they wouldn't even be able to leave Bezdin or whatever, once they got there. But then Rabban Gamliel Azaken, who was the grandfather of Rabban Gamliel, okay, he was also, right, remember in Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Tesvav Mud Aleph, so they talked about the last 100 years of the Beis HaMikdash. There were 4, I think, Nasis. There was Hillel, his son Shimon, and then his son Rabban Gamliel Azakin, who we're talking about now, and then his son Shimon, who was the father of Rabban Gamliel. So this is who we're talking about. Rabban Gamliel Azakin must have been during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. And he said that they have 2,000 amas in any direction. So initially, when, originally, if people would come to give testimony about the new moon on Shabbos, they would just kind of have to hang out till after Shabbos. But then Rabban Gamliel Azakin made a takana that they could walk 2,000 amas in any direction. Okay? Lo elu bavad, not just these people who are giving testimony about the moon, right? Lo elu bavad amru, ela afilu chachama abba liyaled, even a midwife who comes to bring a baby into the world, ve'abba lahatzil min agayis, or somebody who's coming to save from bad guys. That's exactly our case. Umin anahar, or if he's coming to save from a river, umin amapolis, or from some kind of structure that fell down, umin adleika, or from some kind of a fire. Harein ka'anche ir, they're like the people of that city that they're going to help. V'yesh loen alpaim amel choruach, and they are able to have 2,000 amas in any direction. Nu chevra, what did we just say? So we just saw that included in this list was people who are coming to help other people from bad guys. And they're only allowed to walk 2,000 amas, and that is it. But what about our Mishnah that says that if you're coming to save, then you can, after you're done saving, you can go all the way back home, even if it's far away. So what is it? Is it 2,000 amas? Is it far away? This is getting shtickle messy. So here, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So it says Rav Yehuda, so it comes Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav to say, Shechozim v'chlei zayin limkoman, that what it means is that they are able to walk those 2,000 amas, but with their weaponry. That's the chiddush of the people coming back from the bad guys. They're still limited to 2,000 amas, However, they're allowed to bring their weaponry with them. Kedetanya, as we learn in a brisa. That originally what they would do is they would leave their weaponry in the house near the wall of the city. Meaning, you'd have these fellows, they would go to some other town to help out their fellow Yidden from bad guys. And then, on their way back, however, they would stash their weaponry and then walk home. However, one time these bad guys identified these Jews who had come to save the other Jews and then stashed their weapons in this house that's near the wall of the city. One time, these bad guys identified these Jews, and the bad guys chased after the Yidden. Now the Yidden were unarmed because they had stashed away their weaponry in this small little house. So the Yidden then rushed into this little house in order to grab their weapons. And then the bad guys chased after them and entered into this house after them. And they were pushing each other and fighting with each other. And they killed each other more than the enemies even killed. So we see that stashing away their weapons led to a terrible situation because they were then walking home unarmed, and then they tried to scramble for their weapons. It ended up becoming a huge debacle. Debacle, I think. Alright. And at that point, they made a takane, that they would be allowed to return with their weaponry. So, right, to prevent a situation like this in the future. So, it says Rav Yehuda Marav that the chiddush by the people going to save the other Yidden from the bad guys is that they are allowed to return with their weaponry, but they are still limited to 2,000 amas. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar said, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak lo kasha, it's no problem, right? Meaning there's no, you can answer the distinction in the following way between, on the one hand, we're saying that these people could walk all the way back to the city. On the other hand, we're saying that they're limited by 2,000 amas. So it says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, kan shenitzchu Yisrael es umos ha'olam, kan shenatzchu umos ha'olam es atzman. It depends who won. If the Yidden won, so then there are no more bad guys. So there's no need to say that, so they don't have to walk all the way home. They're not scared anybody's going to cause trouble. However, if the Yidden lost this bout, well then there are still bad guys left. And if they stop after 2,000 amos, well then they are in a precarious situation, a dangerous situation. So it says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, and that's the case where they would be allowed to walk all the way home if they were not victorious. But if they were victorious, then they would not violate the Tchum Shabbos on the way home. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rab, said Rav Yehuda in the name of Rab Nachum Shetzaru al Ayaris, that if you have Gentiles who besieged a city, right, al Ayaris Yisrael, in yotzim aleim b'chlei zeinon, so if it's Shabbos, you may not go and contest them with weapons. Ve'ein mechalin alenas Shabbos, and you may not be mechal Shabbos. Tanin Am Yachiv, we also learn in a brayso like this, Nachum Shetzaru v'chulei, b'medvar, when do we say this? Kshabou al iskei mamon, that is only if the Gentiles are coming just to be nudniks, to plunder granaries, stuff like that. However, if these Gentiles were coming not just to be nudniks, but to mamish be murderers, well then, in that case, the Yidden are able to approach these Gentiles with weapons and be machal Shabbos. Okay, fine. So v'ir asmuch l'sfar. Now, if we're talking about a city that is close to the border, right? I.e., it's a key city, it's an important city. That if that if these Gentiles defeat this one city, they will then have be able to easily get to many other cities. Well, it's a strategic city. So nafil lobo al iskei nefashos ela al iskei teven v'kash yotzen aleim b'chlei zeinon u'mechalin alenas haShabbos. So if it is a strategic city, a border city, so then even if these Gentiles are coming just to be nudniks and to plunder the granaries, you have to take that threat seriously. And maybe they want more than that. Maybe they want to, fight with lots of cities. So then the Yidden in that border city can contest these Gentiles even with weaponry and be Mechal Shabbos. Amr Rav Yosef bar Minyomi, Amr Rav Nachman, Ubavel, Kiras Muchlis Fardamya. Says Rav Yosef bar Minyomi in the name of Rav Nachman that Bavel is considered like a strategic city, a city that is on the border. V'targuma Naharda. What this means is specifically Naharda. Then Naharda, apparently, that's where Shmuel was. I think it was close to the Euphrates. But I guess Naharda, was the first city that you get to before you get to many other Jewish cities. And therefore, Naharda has the din of this border city that you can be more sensitive to threats. Darish Rabbi Dostai Dimin Beiri. Rabbi Dostai Dimin Beiri expounded my Tichsiv. What does the pasuk mean in Shmuel Aleph by David HaMelech? Vayagidu leDavid Lemor, that they said to David HaMelech, saying, Hinei Plishtim Nilchamim B'Ke'ilah, that the Philistines, the Plishtim, are fighting in Ke'ilah, Behemoshosim Esagranos, and they are plundering the granaries. Tana, Ke'ilah Irasmucha L'Sfar Haisa. So we learned that Ke'ilah was a city that was close to the border. And these nudniks, these plishtim, were only coming to plunder like grain and stuff. As it says, that they were just plundering the granaries. And what does the next pasuk say? That David HaMelech asked the Eibishter, should I go and smite these Philistines? And David HaMelech and the Eibishter said, yes, go and fight the Plishtim and save Ke'ilah. So my kami ba'ilei, what exactly was David HaMelech asking God? Ilema ishari aser, if he was asking a halacha question, is it mutter or not? No, that's not what he was asking. Hari bezdino shel Shmuel aramati kaim. The bezdin of Shmuel was around. Like, there's no reason to bother God on a question of halacha if he could just ask Shmuel. That's not what he was asking. He knew the halacha. The halacha was that, yes, if it's a border city, such as Ke'ilah, he would be permitted to contest the Plishtim, and it was Shabbos, by the way. So, Ela, im matzlach, ilo matzlach, tekanami tichsev lech v'yikisa b'plishtim v'yishaites Ke'ilah shmamina. No, what David HaMelech was asking God was not if he's allowed to. Yes, he's allowed to. The question was, would he succeed? Would he be successful? And we can see that from God's answer, which is yes, go and smite the Plishtim and save Ke'ilah, i.e. you will be successful. Okay, so we see that you're allowed to, even on Shabbos, be Mechal Shabbos, in order to protect a border city, even if it's just Al Iskei Mamon. New Mishnah, friends. Mishayashav Baderech, somebody who sat down, he was traveling, and he sat down to take a break, he was very tired. Ve'amad, and then he stands up, V'ra Hareu Samach Le'ir. And he says, holy smokes, I am right next to a city, right? So it's Friday afternoon, right next to Shabbos, right before Shabbos, and he's traveling. He doesn't realize that he's next to a city, and he's tired, and he takes a break, and he sits down. And then Shabbos begins while he's sitting, and he gets up, and he says, oh wow, I'm very close to a city. So the question is, can he be treated as though he was in the city? After all, he was in the outskirts of the city when Shabbos began. So on the one hand, if he had kavana to be in the city, well then certainly he could be treated as, Anshe Amakum. But the thing is, over here, he didn't intend to do that. He only realized that he was next to the city after the fact. So, Mishayashav ba'derech ve'amad v'ra harehu samoch le'ir, somebody who was traveling and he sat down to take a break, and then he gets up and he realizes, and it's already Shabbos, and he realizes, wow, I'm right next to this city. So Meir says, look, the fact of the matter is, this was not his intention. He didn't realize that there was a city here at all when he sat down. Therefore, since it was not his intention, he cannot be treated as somebody who's in that city, and somebody who would have started Shabbos in the city, so you'd be able to walk anywhere in the city, even if it's more than 2,000 amas, plus 2,000 amas outside of the city. But says Rav Meir, no, he didn't have intention, so he can't be treated like somebody in the city. So he has his Tchum Shabbos, he has his 2,000 amas, meaning, he wasn't sleeping or anything. He was awake when Shabbos began. He knew where he was, meaning to the extent that he knew that where he is right now, that's where he is for Shabbos. So he has 2,000 amas in any direction, but he's not considered like somebody who was spending Shabbos inside the city. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Yikanes, no, he can go into the city and be treated like, he was in that city when Shabbos began. like everybody else in the city. Amr Yehuda Ma'aseh v'nichnas Rabbi Tarfon b'lo miskaven. It says Rabbi Yehuda, and by the way, there was a story with Rabbi Tarfon that he was in this exact situation. He didn't realize he was right next to a city, and then when Shabbos had already begun, he realized that he's next to the city, and he went into the city and and treated it for all intents and purposes as if he was in that city for when Shabbos began, and took advantage of all the great things in that city. Tanya, says the Gemara, Amr Rabbi Yehuda. So says Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'aseh Rabbi Tarfon. There was this story that we just alluded to with Rabbi Tarfon, Shay Mahalech B'derech, that he was walking, v'chashchalo, and it got dark. So he said, okay, look, what can I do? It's Friday afternoon. It's getting dark. It's Shabbos. So I guess I'm hanging out here for Shabbos. So Vilan Chutz Le'ir, and he went to sleep outside of the city, L'Shachris. And then in the morning, Mitza'u Roi Bakar, shepherds found him. Amrulo, and they said to Reb Tarfon, Rebbe, Harei Ir Lefanecha Hikanes. They said, look, Rebbe, there's a city right over here. Why don't you just go into the city? So basically, when Shabbos started, he didn't realize there was a city there. He went to sleep, and he wakes up in the morning, and these shepherds told him, look, if you just walk over there, there's going to be a nice city. So he went into the city, v'yashuv b'beis hamedrash, and he found, of course, the beis hamedrash, v'darash kol yom kulo, and he spent the entire day learning in this city. So Amrulo, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, Misham Raya, you're going to bring a proof from there. Shema belibo haisa. Maybe his intention, maybe Rabbi Tarfon actually did intend to be in that city when Shabbos started. How do you know that he was completely unaware of this city? Maybe he just, he didn't get a chance to get to the city, but, or maybe he wanted to camp outside the city, whatever it is, but maybe he did intend to be in the city. Oh, Beis HaMedrash muvla b'soch trumohaya, or maybe the Beis HaMedrash in the city was within his 2,000 amas, right? Maybe the reason why Rabbi Tarfon went into the city and hung out in the Beis HaMedrash wasn't because, it was Ki'ilu, we spent Shabbos in the city. Rather, you could say that, look, he was right outside of the city when Shabbos began, so maybe this Beis HaMedrash was still within his 2,000 amas that he's allowed to walk. Maybe that's why he hung out there. So they said to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't bring this incident, this anecdote with Rabbi Tarfon as a proof that, if when Shabbos started you were close to the city and you didn't realize it, that you can be treated like somebody in the city. There's too many unknown variables in that story. New Mishnah. Some interesting stuff in this Mishnah. Mishayashim Baderech. Okay, so now this case is a little bit different. We're not talking about somebody who just took a break and didn't realize that he was close to a city. In this case, he actually fell asleep before Shabbos, which means that when Shabbos began, he was unconscious. So he didn't have so when Shabbos began, and he's Kona Shvisa, or he would have been Kona Shvisa, he wasn't Kona anything. He was out for the count. So basically, when Shabbos started, he didn't have any intention of anything, of being, in any place for Shabbos. He was in his dreams. So Mishayashim Baderech, so somebody who was sleeping, V'lo yada shechashech, and he didn't realize that Shabbos began, that it got dark. And then he wakes up and it's already Shabbos. But again, when Shabbos came in, he didn't have any intention of anything because he was sleeping. So Yesh la'apayim amil choruach div Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says it doesn't matter that he didn't consciously accept to be, spending Shabbos in any particular place. The fact of the matter is, when he wakes up and it's Shabbos, he could walk 2,000 amas in any direction from where he is right now. Whereas the Chachamim say, no, he can only walk Dalid amas, because since he didn't have any intention to be Kona Shvisa anywhere, to say this is where I'm staying for Shabbos, because he was sleeping, so when he wakes up, he actually isn't he's not spending Shabbos anywhere technically. He's in the middle of nowhere and he can walk Dalet Amos, which is not very far, for 25 hours. Enjoy. Hopefully he's still tired and you can just go back to sleep. Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer v'hu be'emtzon. So Rabbi Eliezer, just about those Dalet Amos, he says that we have to treat it as if he's in the middle of the Dalet Amos, i.e. he can walk 2 Amos in any direction. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda Omer le'ezeruach sheyirtze yelech, u'mod Rabbi Yehuda shimber lo she'enu yachol lachzor bo. Rabbi Yehuda says that he can walk 4 amas in any direction. So if he decides east is going to be his direction, he can walk 4 amas in east. However, once he chooses that east is his direction, he can no longer go back to where he started and walk 4 amas west. No, because he already chose that his 4 amos are going to be to the east. So Rabbi Eliezer says it's considered like he's in the middle of these Dalet amos. He can walk in any direction 2 amos. Rabbi Yehuda says no, he could choose one direction and walk 4 amos in that direction. Wow. Okay. Hayu shnayim miktsas amosav shel zeh b'soch amosav shel zeh. So now what happens if you have 2 Yidden dartin? Let's call them Reuven and Shimon. So you have Reuven and Shimon who are both sleeping when Shabbos begins, and then they realize, and then they both wake up when Shabbos, and then they both wake up on Shabbos. Now they are 6 amos away from each other, okay? Which means that, so between Reuven and Shimon, there's a distance of 6 amos, which means that, 4 amos away from where Reuven is, and then 4 amos away from where Shimon is, you're going to have 2 amos that overlap. Got that? So you basically, Reuven's got 2 amos, and then another 2 amos. Now that overlaps with 2 amos of Shimon, and then Shimon's got his own 2 amos. So they each have 2 amos that don't overlap, but 2 amos that do overlap. 2, 2, and 2, that is their 6 amos between them. Got it? Good. So, Mivin v'ochlin be'emtza. So they could take out their food and they could farbrengen in the middle 2 amos. As long as they do not go into the places where they're not allowed to go to, right? So basically, Reuven's got his Dalet amos, Shimon's got his Dalet amos. Now, the first 2 of Reuven's Dalet amos are exclusively his. The next 2 he shares with Shimon, but the 2 amos after that are exclusively Shimon's. Reuven cannot go there. They have their 2 amos that they share. They can hang out there, but they cannot continue into the remaining 2 amos of his friend. Okay? Hayu shlosha. What if they were 3 chevre? Okay. V'emtzai muvla b'neim. So now what happens in this situation is slightly different. So there are 3 chevra now. So now Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, right? Shimon is in the middle. So now Shimon's got his Dalet amos. Now let's just start on, let's say, east and west, right? So Shimon's got his 2 amos. Let's say he's got 2 amos to the west, and he's got 2 amos to the east. Now, the western 2 amos of Shimon overlap with Reuven, okay? So Reuven basically has 2 amos free, and then the next 2 amos overlap with the first 2 amos of Shimon, the western 2 amos of Shimon. Now, Shimon's eastern 2 amos overlap with Levi, right? Levi has got 2 amos that are exclusively his, then the next 2 amos overlap with Shimon. So basically, Shimon, the western 2 amos overlap with Reuven, the eastern 2 amos overlap with Levi. So Shimon's entire Dalet amos overlap with Reuven and Levi respectively. However, Reuven doesn't overlap with Levi at all. He only overlaps with Shimon. And Levi doesn't overlap with Reuven at all. He only overlaps with Shimon. So basically, Shimon can hang out, can farbreng with both Reuven and Levi, but Reuven and Levi cannot farbreng with each other because they're not overlapping at all. Got it? Good. So again, Hayu Shlosh, if there were 3 fellows, V'emtzai muvla benein, and the middle guy, Shimon, is completely overlapped by Reuven and Levi. So hu mutar ima, and he can hang out with them all he wants, because he completely shares space with each of them. V'hein mutarin imo, and they can hang out with Shimon. Ushnai machitzonim asurin zeh zeh, but Reuven and Levi, the 2 outer ones, would be unable to hang out with each other because they don't overlap at all. Now, we're going to take this same situation and just apply to chatzeres. Nothing too complicated. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, lema davar dome. What is this similar to? The shalosh chatzeres apsuches zo lazo. If you have 3 chatzers that open into each other, this is nothing complicated. We've seen way more complicated than this. This is pretty standard. Upsuches l'rishus harabim, and they're open to rishus harabim. Ervu shtayim im emtzayos hi muteres imoin ve'im mutaros imo ushtayim achitzonos asur zoim zo. What does this mean? Imagine you have 3 chatzers that are lined up one next to each other, the significance of them being open to Rosh Hashanah is not to make things complicated. It's just to point out that they each have their own entrances and exits, right? It's a Pesach. It's not a Pirza. Simple stuff, right? It's funny. We're so far into Ayruvin that like something like this is like super simple. But anyways, basically it's got a Pesach to Rosh Hashanah. It's not a Pirza. It's just a regular old Pesach. So like you can carry, assuming that they did an Eruve Chatzeros, each of the Chatzeros individually did their own Eruve Chatzeros. So then you can carry in the Chatzer. It's no problem. However, you would be unable to carry from one Chatzer to the other. Okay? So since each one of the Chatzeros individually did an Eruve Chatzeros, you can carry in the Chatzer. But what if you want to be able to carry from one Chatzer to the next? Let's call them A, B, and C. So let's say you want to carry from Chatzer A to Chatzer B. So what do you do, Chaver? So you make a, so you make an Eruv between the different Chatzeros, right? So if Chatzer A wants to carry to Chatzer B, so they gotta make an Eruv together so that they can carry between one another, right? Because they're two different Rishus HaYachids, they're owned by different people, so you cannot carry from one Rishus HaYachid to the next, but if you make an Eruv, then you can. So, in a similar manner to Reuven, Shimon, and Levi who were hanging out with their Dalet Amas, so here also, so you have Chatzers A, B, and C, so you want to be able to carry between them. So what we're saying is, that if Chatzer B, if the middle Chatzer made an Eruv with Chatzer A and with Chatzer C, so then Chatzer B can carry between, so there can be carrying between Chatzer A and Chatzer B, there can be carrying between Chatzer B and Chatzer C, but there can't be carrying between Chatzer A and Chatzer C because they didn't do an Eruv together, right? So again, so through the inside. So Reb Shimon, this is similar. If you have three chatzers, that they're open into each other, they're also open into Rosh Hashanah. If chatzer A and chatzer C each made an eruv together with chatzer B, so chatzer B can carry between chatzer A and chatzer C, meaning chatzer B can carry to whichever chatzer it wants. And chatzer A and C can carry into chatzer B, but chatzer A and chatzer C cannot carry from one to the other because they did not make a chatzer together, an eruv together. Okay, says the Gemara, Bai Rava. So now Rava asks a kasha. So remember, at the beginning of our Mishnah we had a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chacham. Right? We're talking about somebody who fell asleep before Shabbos, and now he wakes up on Shabbos, but when Shabbos came in, he was snoozing, he had no intention of being Kona Shvisa anywhere, he was sleeping. So, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, nonetheless, he can have 2,000 Amos in any direction. The Chachamim say that he only has Dalet Amos. So, by Rava wants to know, Ma'iksav Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, how do we understand Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's position, which is that he can nonetheless walk 2,000 Amos in any direction? Ma'azver Kasavar, is it because he holds Chefze Hefker, Konin Shvisa, that even just like Hefker items, you have a baseball that's between hither and yon, somewhere in the middle, it's in a random place. So, it's Kona Shvisa, and somehow if you have somebody who would be able to carry it, whatever, so you'd be able to move it up to 2,000 Amos from where it is, right? Even Hefker items can be Kona Shvisa and have 2,000 Amos. Well, if that's the case, well then this guy who's sleeping, well, we'll just treat him like a Hefker item and say that he also has 2,000 Amos in any direction. And theoretically, the Mishnah could have just talked about Hefker Kalim instead of a guy who's sleeping. The reason why the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim is centering around a sleeping person and not just a baseball is because Lodeach HaKochen DeRabbanan is to tell you the extremity of the Rabbanan's opinion that even though you can argue V'neyor Kana Yashan Nami Kana, so I might think, you can make the argument, well, yeah, but this guy, when he's awake, he would be Kona Shvisa and he would have 2,000 Amos. So maybe I can make the argument that even if he's sleeping, it's no different, and he could still be Kona 2,000. He could still, have 2,000 Amos in any direction. Kamash Malon Dilo. So the reason why the Mishnah is arguing about a person who's sleeping as opposed to a baseball is because there's a chiddush about a person who's sleeping, which is that you can maybe make the argument that, well, since when he's awake, he would be able to be Kona Shvisa and walk in 2,000 Amos in any direction. So maybe when he's sleeping, we'd say the same thing. Say the Rabbanan, they put their foot down and they say no, he gets Dalet Amos and that is it. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says he can walk 2,000 amas in any direction, because just like, Chefze Hefker are Kohen Shvisa, so also somebody who's sleeping is Kohen Shvisa. So that's one way of trying to understand, so that's one way of viewing Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's position, which is that we treat the sleeping person like Chefze Hefker, and we're going to assume that he holds that Chefze Hefker are Kohen Shvisa, and that's why this fellow has 2,000 amas in any direction. Or Dilmor, perhaps, Kosav Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, V'ama Chefze Hefker ein Kohen Shvisa. Or maybe, when it comes to Hefker things like a baseball, it would not be Kohen Shvisa, and you wouldn't be able to, it wouldn't get its own 2,000 amas in any direction. And over here, the reason why we're saying that this person gets 2,000 amas in any direction is whole v'neir kana yashen nami kana, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri will argue, well, if he was awake, he would be Kohen Shvisa 2,000 amas in any direction. So even when he's sleeping, it's the same thing, and he gets 2,000 amas in any direction. So that is Rava's kasha. Basically, what does Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri hold? Does vis-a-vis Chefze Hefker Kohen Shvisa? Does he say that Chefze Hefker are Kohen Shvisa, and we treat the sleeping person like Chefze Hefker, and that's why he gets 2,000 amas in any direction? Or do we say it has nothing to do with Chefze Hefker? Chefze Hefker, these Hefker items, ownerless items, are not Kohen Shvisa. They don't get their own 2,000 amas. The reason why this guy gets 2,000 amas is because, well, if he was awake, he'd get 2,000 amas. So even when he's sleeping, he gets 2,000 amas. So that is Rava's kasha on Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef comes to answer this kasha. Tashma coming here, Gisham Shiyadu Me'erev Yomtiv, Yishlein Alpaim Amalucha Ruach. So if it rained on Erev Yomtiv, so now there's water. Now water, we're going to treat as a Chefze Hefker, as ownerless property, ownerless water. And we're saying that it rained on Erev Yomtiv, and now Yomtiv starts, and this water gets 2,000 amas in any direction. So it sounds like this water is being Kohen Shvisa. Bi Yomtiv, if it rains, however, on Yomtiv, and now you have water that just fell down on Yomtiv and it wasn't there before Yomtiv, well then it's not Kohen Shvisa. It doesn't get its 2,000 amas in any direction, and rather it's just like whoever takes it, right? So if I am hanging out around there for Shabbos, and I take some of this water, well then I could take it with me, assuming I can carry, I could take it with me as wherever I can go. It's basically governed, it doesn't have its own 2,000 amas, it's governed by my 2,000 amas. Okay, so what do we say? So we say that if it rained before Yom Tiv, this Brisa is saying that if it rained before Yom Tiv, so this water gets its own 2,000 amas, i.e., it's Kohen Shvisa. So you amart b'shlama k'sav Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Chefze Hefker Kohen Shvisa. So I understand. So it would be great if we could argue that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that Chefze Hefker are Kohen Shvisa, and therefore they get 2,000 amas in any direction. So how many? Rabbi Yochanan. Well, then who's the author of this brisa? It must be Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Perfect. Eli amart Chefze Hefker ein Kohen Shvisa. How many? But if you say that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Chefze Hefker are not Kohen Shvisa, well then, who's the author of this brisa who says that, this water that rained on Erev Shabbos gets 2,000 amas in any direction? Lo Rabbi Yochanan v'lo Rabbanan. It's neither Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri nor the Rabbanan, right? Meaning we need somebody whose opinion is Chefze Hefker Kohen Shvisa. And if we say that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is not that Tana who holds that, well then who does? And then who would be the author of this brisa? So therefore, that is Rav Yosef's argument to say that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, it must be that he holds Chefze Hefker Kohen Shvisa, and he is the author of that brisa that says that the rain that fell on Erev Yom Tiv has 2,000 amas in any direction because it's Kohen Shvisa. Yosef Abaye v'kamer la shmaita. Now Abaye was sitting and he was teaching this sugya. Amle Rav Safra la Abaye, and then Rav Safra said to Abaye, "V'dilma b'gsham masmuchin le'ira skinon." But maybe what we could argue about this water, that this rain that rained on Erev Yom Tiv, maybe the 2,000 amas that it gets is not because it's Kohen Shvisa. Maybe it's for a different reason. Maybe it's because the rain, this water that collected, was close to a city. Manche Osair daita malayu. And the people of that city have their kavana, have their thoughts on this rain that's near the city, and therefore the reason why it gets 2,000 amas is because it's considered part of the city. Therefore, it basically gets 2,000 amas in any direction from the city. But it has nothing to do with Chefze Hefker Kohen Shvisa or not. It's just considered, part of the people of that city. and what their tchum is. So Amalei lo sagadaitich. So Abaye says to Rav Safra that's not going to work. How come? Because we have a Mishnah that says Bor shel Yachid Kiragle Yachid. So if you have a water hole that belongs to an individual, well then its tchum is governed by that person's tchum. So meaning if I own a watering hole, or if Reuven owns a watering hole, and Shimon wants to take some water, or takes some water from the watering hole, where can Shimon take this water? How far can he walk with it? He could walk however far Reuven could walk. And if there's a city that has a watering hole, well then if somebody takes water from that watering hole, how far can they walk with that water? As far as anybody in the city could walk with it, which is 2,000 amos in any direction from the city. However, when it comes to, if there were these, there were these watering holes, right? There were these water holes for the people who would be ole to Israel, who would come to Israel from Bavel. Now, on the road, there were these water holes that you can get water. Now, they were hefker water, and we're saying that. So, if it's Shabbos or Yom Tif, and somebody fills up some water, the question is, how far could they take it? They could take it however far their tchum allows them to go. I.e., even though this water was hefker and, it was Kona Shvisa when Shabbos started, it does, or theoretically, if you would say that it's Kona Shvisa, it would be Kona Shvisa, right? And we're saying that, however, they don't get their own 2,000 amas. So, and it's just governed by the tchum of the person who takes the water for himself. Vitanya, yet we have another brayso that says, Bor shel Shvatim, that these water holes of the Shvatim was also a reference to the people who would be Ole Regel from Bavel. It's interesting that it calls them the tribes. Well, I don't know, what's the implication? Maybe like the Aseres HaShvatim? I don't know. But any of these watering holes for these Shvatim also, meaning the same watering holes that we're talking about, Yeshna Mapayim Am L'Choruach, they have their own tchum of 2,000 amas in any direction. So one second, Kashana Adade. It's problematic. On the one hand, we're saying that they don't have their own 2,000 amas. It's governed by the tchum of the person who took the water. Yet we have another brayso that says that they have 2,000 amas in any direction of their own. So rather, what do we see? One brayso must be Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The brayso that says that they have 2,000 amas in any direction must be Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says Cheftzei Hefker Konin Shvisa. And the other brayso which says that it's just governed by the tchum of the person who took it must be like the Chachamim, who say that we don't say Cheftzei Hefker Konin Shvisa, and it's just governed by the tchum of the person who took the water. So we see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's opinion is that this water would have 2,000 amas in any direction, and therefore Abaye says to Rav Safra that this brayso, which says that if it rained on Erev Yom Tif, so then this water can be taken 2,000 amas in any direction, or has a tchum of 2,000 amas in any direction, must be Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, not that it was just close to a city. Okay, fine. He also, the Kamid of Yosef, when Abaye came before his Rebbe Rav Yosef, he said to Rav Yosef, Achikam Rav Safra, this is what Rav Safra suggested to me, that maybe this water was just near the city and was governed by the 2,000 amas of the city. And this is what I respond to him, saying that there's this machlokas between these watering holes. One says that it has 2,000 amas, one of them says it doesn't. Therefore, one must be Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So Amalei, Rabbi Yosef says to Abaye, that's a very nice answer, but why didn't you just keep it simple and just answer from the brayso itself? What does it say in the brayso? That Rabbi Yosef says, look, you could just literally you don't have to make a whole shtickle Torah about these machlokas and braisos and mishnas about these watering holes and on Bavel and what. Say it simply. It says in this original brayso that we're talking about that when it rains on Erev Yom Tif, so the water has 2,000 amas in any direction. It says that the water itself has 2,000 amas in any direction. Not that, right? If it was like Rav Safra was suggesting that it was close to the city and the people had intention for it, then it should say what? Kiregel anshe osa'ir, that it has the same tchum as the people of that city. But that's not what it says. It says that it itself has 2,000 amas in any direction, which means that it itself is being kona shvisa. And whose opinion is that? It must be that it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's opinion that cheftzei hefker are kona shvisa, and that answers Rava's kasha, which is that, the answer being that Rav Yochanan ben Nuri's opinion is that Cheftzei Hefker are Kone Shvisa, and there's going to be 2,000 amos in any direction for those items, and that is also why he says that somebody who's sleeping gets 2,000 amos in any direction. That was Daf Mem Hey of Masechta Ayruvin. Let us go over some of the things that we learned. So we talked about returning home from defending against bad guys. So if Yehuda says the name of Rav, you are still going to be limited by 2,000 amos. However, you can take your weaponry with you. Whereas if Nachman Yitzchak says it depends. If you beat the bad guys, well then there's nothing to worry about, and you can't walk past 2,000 amos. If the bad guys beat you, well then it's going to be dangerous to stop after 2,000 amos, and you can go all the way home. Okay, then we talked about what happens when you take a break from your journeys on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yom Tov, and then on Shabbos you realize oh wow, I'm actually really close to a city. So can it be considered as if you're in that city for Shabbos and have their halachos of Tchum? So Meir says no, you're limited to 2,000 amos from where you were when Shabbos began. Rabbi Yehuda says that, yeah, it can be treated like you're part of the city. Okay, fine. Then we talked about waking up on Shabbos between hither and yan. Right? When you fall asleep, when Shabbos begins, you were sleeping, and then you wake up on Shabbos. So, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, you could walk 2,000 amos in any direction. According to the Chachamim, you are going to be unable to walk more than 4 amos. Chevre, that was Daf Mem Hey. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.